Welcome, everyone, to the regularly stated meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. This is the meeting for Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. This is to formally advise that as required by General Law, Chapter 38, Sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. Again, this is the meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission, October 3rd, 2024. Our first order of business is a request for determination of applicability for Joseph Phillips, 8 Lindale Road. It's a proposed 270 square foot addition within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Hi, okay, come on up to the table here and take a seat.
Thank you.
And then briefly describe, just state your name for the record, and then briefly describe the project that you are going to try and do.
Joe Phillips, and we'd like to put a 27-foot long, 10-foot wide bump out on the side of our house, which would entail a rubber-tired mini excavator going across our paved driveway, and then going across roughly 10, 15 feet to get to the job site area.
Okay.
They dig down 48 inches, excavate that out, pour concrete, and then backfill and take the forms out. There you go.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions from the board? Anybody? Brittany?
Not about the project. Did you get our message about the sprinkler? I sent you an email, but just letting you know, your sprinkler is broken in the back and it was gushing water in your yard. So we shut it off on the side of the house when we were there.
It's funny, I turned it back on today and I saw it gushing, I turned it back off.
Okay, just want to let you know.
All right, thank you very much. No, I didn't get
But
that
no
message.
questions about the project. Do you intend on connecting the patio after you put the addition on?
No, the patio will be
walkway?
gone,
Yeah, so there's a walkway. Are you going to connect?
so the walkway will be gone.
Okay. All right, no questions. Thank you.
All right, anybody in the audience on this one? Anybody on Zoom? If not, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2?
I will.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Sorry, a negative determination is a positive thing for you. It means that you don't have to do any further filing with the Conservation Commission. You can start, you give it a couple, sometime middle of next week, contact Brittany.
Great.
She'll have the determination for you, and you can go ahead and start working toward your building permits and that sort of thing.
All right, great, thank
Okay.
you. Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks.
Thanks for the call.
All right, next order of business is another request for determination of applicability, Crawford Land Management for Julia Python Gristmill Lane, proposed invasive species management of 1,640 square feet within Salt Marsh.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Lauren Taylor with Crawford Land Management on behalf of the applicant Julia Python. This project is a request for determination of applicability to manage a stand of Phragmites at the end of Gristmill Lane. You might remember that I was in front of you just a couple weeks ago with a notice of intent to treat Phragmites at the abutting 140 Baxter Ave and 31 Gristmill Lane. The applicant for the notice of intent was the same applicant as one for this request for determination of applicability. They originally wanted to include treatment of Phragmites at the end of Gristmill Lane in that notice of intent application, but they weren't able to determine who owned that parcel of land before that filing deadline. But since that time, we've been able to determine that the Gristmill Lane parcel is owned by the owners of 31 Gristmill Lane, as well as the Gristmill Village Civic Association. They both own to the center line of Gristmill Lane. So since we've determined who owns that property and that they're in favor of the proposed work, we're just looking for your permission to manage the remaining portion of Phragmites in that stand, just to get more effective control of it. The treatment protocol and the timeline is essentially the same that was approved with that notice of intent just a couple weeks ago. But if there's any questions about the specifics, I'd be happy to help answer those now.
Okay, questions from the board? All set. Brittany?
No questions. If you could just include the monitoring for this section, you can fold it in with the monitoring reports that are required for the order of conditions. You don't need to submit separate ones, just one for the whole area would be great.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, anybody on the audience on this one? Anybody on Zoom, raise your hand digitally. If not, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2 and a -3?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Next order of business is a request for extension for SE 83-2304, Robert Kosak, 27 Longview Road, proposed renovation of existing single-family dwelling within existing footprint and upgrade septic system to Title V standards within the buffer zone to vegetative wetlands and coastal bank. Brittany, this is for 3 years.
Yes, they're for the
One, right?
first request for 3 years.
All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to extend permit SE 83-2304 for 3 years?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next order of business, another request for extension for SE 83-2301, Peter and Kim Lee, 40 Mayflower Terrace. This proposed construction of a pier, ramp, and float system to replace existing seasonal system within land under the ocean, coastal beaches, land containing salt marsh and shellfish, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Again, this is a first-time request for 3 years. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the extension?
So moved. Second.
Jack, you did that? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. And a final request for extension for SE 83-2303, Peter and Kim Lee, 40 Mayflower Terrace, or proposed construction of elevated deck balcony over the footprint of an existing elevated deck in a buffer zone to a land containing salt marsh, coastal beach, and land containing shellfish. Again, first request for this for 3 years. Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the extension?
I will.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Do you have to sign any others?
Yeah.
They are coming. Okay, for the second file, there's 2 signature sheets. All right, next order of business is a continued request to amend an order of conditions for SE 83-2379, CDM Smith for Town of Yarmouth, 170 South Shore Drive. This is pumping station and sewer installation for wastewater, proposed dewatering discharge into the ocean at 3 locations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Judici from CDM Smith, representing the town, here with Maggie Lofstead from our office, as well as Sharky Al-Sarabi, who works for the contractor, Rivoli Construction. Hopefully answer any questions. So they had submitted last week a plan for the dewatering discharge. Again, for reminder, this is for Contract 3 of the town's collection system project, particularly along South Shore Drive. Looking for an alternative discharge location for groundwater collected during the dewatering operations. So they had proposed 3 locations whereby they would provide settling of the of the effluent from the dewatering system before discharge to the ocean at 3 separate locations included in the packet. The comment from the commission was they were looking for an engineered stamped plan laying out what was proposed, and that was what was submitted last week. So if there are any further questions or concerns, I'd be happy to address them.
Okay, questions from the board? This is from Amanda for this project, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I might have to read that.
You have to read that?
Maybe not read it, but I'll just let them know. Read it to them.
I was going to do that.
What? Do you want to do it?
That's okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and do it.
All right. So there is no discussion from the board? Just to let you know, we did receive comment from Amanda Lima. She's the town engineer for the town of Yarmouth. She has provided several points of conditions she's reviewed the plan, believes that the revised dewatering discharge plan with PDF date of September 30th, 2024. They consider the plan to be conditionally approved, including the following conditions. They've got a list of 9 total. I assume you've already seen this, correct?
I actually have not seen that, but that's,
Late breaking.
I'm sure we'll receive it at,
So I spoke to her today, and pretty much the gist of her comments, happy to provide them to you before we issue, is that if you're going to use eight pipes, each pipe needs its own settling tank, and that the pump may not be able to be used in order to meet the detention time that you have calculated here, since that's the most important part about the settling time. And there's a couple of other things for it to be monitored daily. And if there's any overflow of the tanks, that we need to be notified in order to make adaptive, to make changes. And I think those are the most important ones that she pointed out to me. But I think there's a couple of other conditions on there.
Okay. Looks good to me. I mean, your assessment, of review and synopsis is good. So unless there's any further, did you have any other comments or questions, Brittany?
No.
All right. Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions and including the 9 conditions spelled out by Amanda Lima, town engineer?
So moved.
Is there-
Second.
Who seconded that? Okay, thank you, Jack. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Bradford did not vote.
On Bradford, did you want?
Yeah, I'm just going to give one to them.
You want mine?
oh, that's fine, great. I have a copy. Thank you. You can,
You can just take my copy. I have it.
Do you need another copy?
I can wait, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next order of business is another continued continued notice of intent for SE 83-2449, Ronald Jean Wackrow, 5 Glenwood Street, proposed maintenance and height expansion of a retaining wall within a coastal bank, coastal beach, land subject to coastal storm flowage in the buffer zone to land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. Just to let everybody know, I did watch the hearing for this, so I think I did this last week, but if anybody would you like me to recuse myself, Kieran?
I'm perfectly fine with you being on the board, Mr.
Okay.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group, representing the owner of the property, Ron and Jean Rackrell. We had previously proposed a plan that had a wall on the near the house and an extension on the wall near the ocean. What we have done based on what the commission had told us is that we removed the interior wall completely, and we reduced the amount of grading, the amount of sand that would go in that area. The primary wall adjacent to the ocean is still the same size and location. What we did is, as opposed to filling the whole area and making it flat behind that wall, we tapered the wall down at a slope all the way down to elevation 6 of what's there at this moment. We didn't reduce the amount of recreation area that we had in the sand, and we increased the area of sand-filled and beach grass area. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. The primary difference is that we will remove the interior wall completely, that the commission was concerned with.
All right, thanks, Kieran. Questions from the board?
One of the things you talked about doing was, it's on here, is rechinking the existing stone. And I'm wondering, is that just going to be done just as what's needed to keep the structural, stabilize it? Or you expect to do everything?
Well, we're not removing any stones to chink, but we are going to fill any position that needs to be chinked. The wall will be different because we're adding 3 feet on top of it, so I don't expect us to damage the wall as we set more stones on it. But if anything becomes dislodged, then we will reset that and then basically chink in between those areas.
Okay, so you're not chinking everything, you're just chinking as needed?
Chinking as needed, but sometimes that is everything. I mean, I won't say that we're not going to chink the majority of the wall. The intent is to make it stable.
I'm done.
All set? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
Well, as I recall, this is the return flow is what is the issue as far as chinking.
Not, no, it's, we want to make sure that they, as it says here, we want to make sure that the small stones can't become projectiles and reduce, if too much chinking will reduce wave dissipation.
Which is return flow, yeah.
And return flow,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't close off the,
We're not going to chink it to a point where it's a solid face. There'll
right.
still be voids around all of
Right,
the
so
stones.
that when waves come, or looking for a way back out,
It will, the waves will dissipate somewhat as it hits that wall. It's not
but
going
if they go over, then you want that to be able to disperse back through the wall.
The way this is set up is that there is a tide gate
Yeah.
already on the property.
Yeah.
So when it goes over that wall, it's not necessarily going to drain back down through the wall and out. It's going to cross the sand area. And
I'm
then
just saying it would help.
we're not putting a pervious barrier behind it.
Yeah.
So, you know, if water may drain back down through there, I just can't say that's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the purpose of chinking is to stabilize the structure so it
Right,
doesn't go
not to-
blowing apart, in the first storm, so.
As long as you don't get over.
But yeah, it's not gonna be cemented. There was a period of time when people were prone to cement everything, and that's not usually, well, I'm not a marine contractor, but that's not usually best management plan, practices either, so. All right, anybody else? Brittany, anything?
Usually when there's a large area being planted, I understand this is not for mitigation, it's just replanting a beach grass area. We do appreciate more than one species being planted. That is my only comment.
little diversity in there.
The diversity is good, but the beach grass that's there is doing a really nice job.
It could still be mostly beach grass.
Definitely, I'll go to my client and we'll talk about some diversity in there.
Anything else?
They were just talking about the chinking because it is recommended from the CZM coastal manual that every void should not be filled during chinking because it reduces wave dissipation. And so as long as you're only chinking for structural stabilization, that's fine, as long as you're not going to be filling every single void. Is that what's intended, just for structural stabilization?
Primarily structural stabilization, but I'll make sure the contractor and the owner know that we cannot fill every
Every
void.
hole.
I don't believe that's the intent, but I'll just make sure that that's clear.
And I can add that as a condition, just for structural stability.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom, raise your hand digitally. If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
All right, next order of business is a new notice of intent for SE 83-2451, Town of Yarmouth Standish Way, proposed construction of a stormwater treatment area within land subject to coastal storm flowage and the riverfront area.
Go ahead.
So, good evening. My name is Nate Wetton. I'm a project manager with the Yarmouth Department of Public Works. And for a couple of years now, we've been working with our subconsultants, the Association to Protect Cape Cod and the Horsley Witten Group on the Yarmouth Stormwater Project. They first conducted an inventory of a large number of stormwater retrofit sites. That was then narrowed to 5 sites for 25% design. And the list has been further narrowed to 2 sites, Standish Way, Curve Hill Road, for 75% design and permitting. So tonight, APCC and the Horsley Witten Group will present the 75% design and permitting documents for Standish Way, Curve Hill Road. So I'll introduce the woman to my left, April Wobst.
Thanks. So I'm April Vopst. I'm the Restoration Program Manager with APCC, and we're contracted to the town of Yarmouth and supporting them through a CZM Coastal Pollutant Remediation Grant, or I guess it's now Coastal Habitat Water Quality Grant. So again, the focus of this multi-year project is improving water quality in impaired water bodies, primarily looking at the watersheds draining to the south side of Yarmouth. So the main focus is treating untreated stormwater, contributing to problems including nutrient impairment as well as bacteria impairment. So as we did the initial assessment with Horsley Witten Group in year 1, the prioritization of sites was based on improvements to that as well as other habitat and benefits. So Curve Hill Road and Standish Way are the 2 sites that are going to be reviewed tonight. They were prioritized for multiple reasons, but are both close to water resources and have little to no treatment at the site right now. So again, short-term goals were to identify the locations across this southern portion of Yarmouth, draining south for stormwater management, and advancing plans for the 2 priority sites with the current funding from the Office of Coastal Zone Management, as well as additional funding the town has secured from USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. Long-term goals, improving water quality, as well as particularly for the NRCS-funded scope at Standish Way, reducing shellfish bed closures due to bacteria runoff. So this is the broad overview of the project. So again, we completed that initial inventory of sites in 2023.
selected those top 5 sites, as Nate indicated. The 25% design of those was completed earlier this year, so with a second grant awarded to the town last fall. And then we had a public meeting in June of this year to look at those top 5 sites, 25% design, and get any comments and feedback on those. And then based on that feedback and the prioritization, selected the top 2 priority sites for this design. And so once we move forward with that, we currently have secured the funding to complete that design and complete construction for these 2 sites, aiming for completion in May and wrap up of the project in June of next year. So that, I'm going to turn it over to our engineers at Horsley Witten to speak more.
Hello, my name is Janelle Very. I work for Horsley Witten Group, and I'm the lead designer for the Standish Way Stormwater Retrofit Project. I will be going through the Standish Way design, and then I will hand it over to my colleague Gemma Kite to go over the Curve Hill design. So just quick agenda. I'll talk about the project goal, the existing conditions, the proposed conditions, and then hand it over to my colleague Ben Woolman to go over the resource area impacts. So as April mentioned, the goal of this project is to reduce the pollution that is entering our coastal waters through stormwater runoff or from stormwater runoff. Specifically for this project, this site was a focus because it is directly outletting into a shell fishing area. So we were focused on removing bacteria and nitrogen through implementing green stormwater infrastructure. As Nate and April mentioned, this is sort of just a map of those sites that we developed, some 10%, some progressed to 25%. The Standish Way site is on the left in the red circle on Lewis Bay. So to start, we'll look at the existing conditions. The existing drainage area that is draining to Mill Creek through the Colonial Acres Beach parking lot. This includes runoff from Standish Way, Windermere Road, and the parking lot itself. The town has previously installed a infiltration trench at the bottom of Windermere Road, which captures and treats runoff from Windermere. And then in 2020, the town installed porous pavement and a underground gravel wetland system in the beach parking lot. This system captures runoff from Standish Way and the parking lot itself. Due to site constraints, the system was sized to only be able to treat about half of the 1-inch storm event. So this project, we specifically looked at Standish Way and opportunities along Standish Way where we could capture and treat runoff before it reached the gravel wetland. So Standish Way is mostly residential. It is a town-owned road, and our specific project is proposed along the grass shoulder in front of the Colonial Acres Resort. The project is proposed within the right-of-way of Standish Road. There's an existing asphalt driveway along the road, and we have a relatively shallow depth to groundwater, which is expected due to the close proximity to the bay. I'll now hand it over to our wetland scientist, Ben Woolman, to go over the resource areas.
Good evening. Can you hear me? All right. So in proximity to the proposed site here, we have a riverfront area, 200 feet extending from a tidally influenced stream that runs west on the north side of the Colonial Acres Beach at the south end of Standish Way. And we also have land subject to coastal storm flowage, which extends up Standish Way up to the elevation 11 foot here. Additionally, just to mention it, it shows it on the plan. There is salt marsh that surrounds the Colonial Beach parking lot, around the perimeter of that parking lot, but it's beyond 100 feet from where the proposed work would occur.
So now looking at the proposed conditions, we are proposing an infiltration trench and a bioretention area along the eastern side of Standish Way. Standish Way, as it exists now, is a crowned road. So we are sizing these practices to treat the runoff from the eastern side of the road. The western side of Standish Way will continue on to the underground gravel wetland. So this combination of both the existing infrastructure and the proposed will allow us to meet the goal of treating the full 1-inch storm event of all of Drainage Area 1, all of the Standish Way and beach parking lot drainage areas. And just looking a bit more into the design, starting on the right side of the slide, which is up gradient, water will enter a water quality unit through a catch basin grate for pre-treatment and then be piped into an infiltration trench. Once this system fills up, water will just continue down the road to the beach parking lot. The infiltration trench is proposed to be planted with shrubs on the surface to help with nutrient uptake. And then further down is the bioretention area. We are proposing a paved flume that will enter into a sediment forebay and overflow into the bioretention area. The bioretention is proposed to be planted with low-maintenance native species. Similar to the infiltration trench, once this system fills up, water will continue down the road. We are not proposing to repave the road. We are proposing to add a Cape Cod berm along the edge of the road to ensure that the water is entering these systems through the inlet points. I'll just go through a couple more elements on that slide. Sorry, thanks. Another element of this project is replacing the existing paved sidewalk. We're proposing to install a porous pavement sidewalk, as well as a small timber retaining wall that will just help reduce grading impacts to the abutters. And lastly, we are proposing an educational sign as well. So I'll hand it back over to Ben.
Thanks. So for the proposed limit of work of the project, the southern end falls within the outer riverfront area, and the entire site is located within land subject to coastal storm flowage here. So having said that, we have temporary and permanent impacts to the land subject to coastal storm flowage. The permanent impacts being the bioretention area, infiltration trench, timber wall, and porous pavement. Everything has been designed to meet the performance standards working within the riverfront area for this project. And land subject to coastal storm flowage. So you have temporary impacts with the limit of work and then the elements designed and built for the project. Overall, this project is restorative in nature. Everything is being proposed within areas that are already developed. All of the elements represent an improvement for the site and the resource areas and their ability to protect the interests of the local and state regulations. So we believe this is a good project.
Okay. Questions?
takes over the maintenance of plantings and things like that? Is that the town's?
Yes, that's the town.
Okay.
As a part of our application, we included a operations and maintenance guide.
I think the town's getting tired of me bringing this up, but sidewalk or impervious sidewalk maintenance. Do you,
Well, because of the location of this sidewalk, there is very little run onto the sidewalk, so we don't expect it to be clogged as often as, say, if you have porous pavement and sand washing onto the porous pavement. This is sort of on its own. It will just be taking the runoff that is falling onto it. So ideally, less maintenance than.
so the town will have to keep after that, and what? Correct. Is that take vacuuming, or what does it take to maintain that?
Yes, vacuum.
Also, you said Crown Road. How crowned is that road, and what storm is that gonna hold so that it deflects over to the east side?
I don't have the exact percent of the crown road, the slope there, but just through our survey, that's what, we can.
She said it was half of the 1-inch storm.
You've seen.
What?
But what is the size of the storm you're really handling here? Up to
So for the drainage areas that are going to our practices, it is the full 1-inch storm. That is then allowing the remainder of the runoff going down Standish Way that is entering the gravel wetland to also be the full 1-inch storm to be treated, because we're taking pressure off of the gravel wetland.
And, well, I guess that's all I've got on the.
Pat?
No questions?
Yeah, I just have maybe one question. You're going to put a timber wall. Is that going to go the length of the whole infiltration trench?
No, it is on the plans. I don't know the exact length off the top of my head, but it's sort of at the up gradient side of the bioretention area.
Okay.
Sorry, this
Well,
computer is not
the
doing it.
reason I asked the question is about maintenance and about the life of the timbers. I know you could go to Home Depot and buy pressure treated stuff it's supposed to last 40 years. I don't know what you use in a timber wall like this, but have you determined how long the timber wall will hold up?
I believe once we progress the design to construction, we'll talk more about the materials. But yeah, I mean, I guess we proposed timber just sort of to kind of match the setting around the site.
I see.
We didn't want to have any hardscape
Yeah, right.
wall.
Yeah.
But, that would be untreated?
The timber? Yes, if that's required.
And how deep is the trench? If I looked at the plan more carefully, I'd know, but how deep is it?
I want to say it's maybe around 6 feet deep.
Oh. okay.
Yeah, don't know that off the top of my head either, but it is on the detail sheets. It shows the elevation and the depth.
So it has a guardrail around it so that,
Sorry, so the infiltration trench itself is all underground.
underground, okay.
Yes.
All right, now I understand. Thank you so much.
And if you just scroll up one more sheet.
I don't have them all zoomed in.
There we go. So yeah, you can see the timber retaining wall here. It's about 35 feet in length.
Okay. All right, and again, it wasn't the length so much as how long it would last.
you know, because I think the questions about maintenance are always something on the minds of the town, people in the town, because, oh, you know, we're going to have to replace this wall and whatever it's going to be, you know, and is it going to be expensive and so on and so forth, so.
Yeah, I think
Purpose for the
as
question.
we progress, we'll talk more with the town about the materials. and
Excellent,
what they're
okay,
looking for.
thanks so much.
Anybody else? Brittany, anything?
No questions, thank you.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? I see
There's a hand there someplace.
Simone?
I see a hand, but I cannot read who that is. Simone?
There you go.
I don't know if there's an option for my video to be turned on, but basically the upshot is I am representing the Cape Cod Conservation District. We are a project partner with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. The town has an agreement with NRCS to have the construction of this project funded by 75% federal funds provided by the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So this project is really well regarded by the Cape Cod Conservation District and also by the Cape Cod Natural Resources by the Natural Resource Conservation Service. We're really excited to put this project in to continue to support shellfishing in that area, and you know, we're just really excited to support this project.
Okay, thank you, Simone.
So
Anybody else on Zoom? I see nothing else. Is there any further discussion among the board?
Do I need to recuse?
Hmm?
Do I need to recuse?
It is up to
why?
you, but I would think no, that you don't.
Okay.
If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
I will.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Next one. Thank you.
Don't go too far away. Next order of business, notice of intent for SE 83-2450, Town of Yarmouth Curve Hill Road, proposed stormwater retrofit within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland.
Good evening, my name is Gemma Kite. I'm an engineer with the Horsley Witten Group, and I'll be presenting on this site along with Ben Wallman. So similar to the last site that we just presented on, we're going to go through the same thing here, talk about the existing conditions of the site, what we're proposing to do under this project, and talk a little bit about the resource impacts. So similar to the last site that we just talked about, Curve Hill and Standish Way are under the same project, so they share the same project goal, which is to improve coastal water quality by reducing or eliminating pollution from stormwater runoff. And you already saw this slide. These are the two sites that we are presenting tonight, but we've been working with the town over the last few years to identify other priority sites. So this particular site, Curve Hill, is located off of Great Western Road, and it is within the Bass River watershed, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, is impaired for nitrogen. There is quite a large contributing drainage area that is coming to this site. It's about 13 acres. 32% of that is impervious. So right now, there's a lot of existing stormwater drainage infrastructure located on Great Western Road, so catch basins, manholes, pipes, that's collecting runoff from Great Western Road, and then it pipes it down to this site at Curve Hill, where it discharges without any prior treatment. This site also collects surface runoff from Curve Hill Road through a paved flume that just discharges right onto the site. The site is a undeveloped town parcel. Again, it receives both surface and piped runoff. And there is evidence of accumulated sediment. If you've been out on the site, you may have seen it yourself. In fact, it was so bad we couldn't even see the pipe that is discharging to the site. We suspected it was probably where you see that little puddle because so much flow comes here. We just thought that, you know, it was probably that puddle was being jetted out every time there was a big storm event. And sure enough, our survey crew did finally find the pipe. And so all of that accumulated sediment is a result of just a very large contributing drainage area that's just dumping a lot of untreated stormwater directly onto this site. And there is a freshwater wetland down gradient that we will talk about. So it's an important site. So what we're proposing to do under this project is to construct a stormwater constructed wetland for treatment. This will continue to collect and now treat the runoff that is coming both from the Great Western Road drainage infrastructure as well as managing the surface runoff from Curve Hill Road. So runoff will be first treated by a water quality unit for pretreatment. This is where the sediment load is significantly reduced, and that's highlighted in that yellow circle. And after that, it is then discharged into a constructed wetland. And it will discharge treated stormwater through an overflow spillway to the down gradient freshwater wetland. We cited the water quality unit within the road because this is easy to access for the town to maintain. And what is a constructed wetland? So it is a control measure that we use to temporarily store and treat stormwater runoff. It helps, similar to how a natural wetland functions, it helps slow down the stormwater so that it can get treated as the stormwater moves from the deep pools to the other deep pools. Constructed wetlands can support conditions suitable for the growth of wetland vegetation, and they provide habitat as well. And pollutants are removed through a number of mechanisms, including uptake by the wetland vegetation, as well as the bacteria that live within the soil and the plant, soil absorption, vegetative filtering, and settling. And so the estimated pollutant removal for this system is actually larger than 80% because we've got that water quality unit for total suspended solids. We get somewhere between 40 to 60% of total phosphorus reduction, as well as 20 to 55% of nitrogen reduction, which again, this is within the Bass River watershed. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Ben to talk about the resource areas in this site.
Yes, so the only wetland resource area located at the site is a bordering vegetated wetland at the southern end of the proposed project, which can be characterized as a red maple swamp. There's also a fair amount of black gum in there as well. This wetland extends south in a low-lying basin to an unnamed stream that flows between High Bank Road and Bass River. The buffer zones associated with the BVW include a 35-foot, the 50-foot, and 100-foot. And as you can see, the project is occurring within the 50 to 100 as well as the 35 to 50-foot. So within the 35 to 50-foot buffer zone, you have the riprap overflow at the southern end, and you have 370 square feet there of impact, and then the constructed wetland within the 50 to 100-foot buffer just north of that, which also includes the majority of the riprap for that overflow at the southern end. Again, the project is restorative in nature. It will improve the conditions. It will reduce the pollution, improving the watershed's conditions, and also serve as habitat. The plants that are being proposed for the constructed wetlands are native species, a large diversity of native species that are going in for this project. So overall, another great project for the town and positive impact for the resource areas and the interests that they protect.
I did just want to note that we are requesting a waiver from section 6.03, which, not to summarize it, but I believe it's the replacement of any trees that are have to be removed. So we do have 4 trees that we're proposing to remove to construct this wetland. There's 1 in the 35 to 50 foot buffer, and then there are 3 in the 50 to 100 foot buffer. So we've ID'd these tree species, and it is our conclusion that to meet and comply with this section would mean that we would have to extend our limit of work to be able to do this. And because the priority and the goal of this project is for water quality improvement, we want to limit our disturbance as much as possible. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the commission.
Questions from the commissioners?
We're asking for questions.
That's what I
Yes.
say. Questions from
Really
commissioners?
heard you, never mind them. Just a couple questions. What do you do about invasive species? What are your plans for that?
Yeah, so if we encounter any while we're out there constructing, obviously there will be some mitigation measures, but we have in our maintenance checklist, so every year, twice a year, someone from the town should be going out and conducting a maintenance visit. And in that checklist, there is a note to identify any invasive species and remove them and manage them. And in our operations and maintenance guide, we do have a sort of a list of and diagrams of the photos, I should say, of the common invasive species that we see around here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have an idea who's going to do that inspection?
Who does the inspections usually for the stormwater, Nate?
This would be a combination of in-staff and hiring sub-consultants. We're fully expecting to bring on a contractor that will help us with some of the aspects of that maintenance that we're not currently
Yeah.
super good at. So that's part of the plan.
Okay, I mean, what I'm getting at is it's that this is not going to be a burden to the administrator who's going to have to do that, right? Is that,
I don't do stormwater maintenance.
I'm talking about more along with the idea of invasive species.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm talking about identification of invasive species because I don't necessarily think that the people who do the stormwater inspections
we're gonna
are as
know.
good about the invasive species. So that's my only question. Is like I'd be concerned about that. But if you're going to be hiring a contractor who's going to do that, then I would ask that would be one of those things that they
I mean,
include
this is a significant project, it's a great project, but with all this vegetation restoration, monitoring the vegetation is what we would require in addition to all of the requirements for the stormwater anyway. So the person who would be doing the monitoring report would be qualified to identify invasives and lay out a protocol, and that we would have to
Okay, as long as we get
meet.
that into the conditions.
monitoring for invasives and general establishment of success for the plants overall, mostly inside the 100-foot buffer, but overall too. We want to see how it's doing. It's a very interesting project. We want to see what's working, if we can implement it in other places. So monitoring reports are pretty standard, but this one as well, keep an eye out for invasives.
Okay.
So one real quick thing I'll say about that. I do a lot of invasive species management planning and used to oversee a lot of invasive species management work. I did the wetland flagging at this site, and the invasive species quantities and densities were fairly low out there overall. So that always bodes well for the success of the project, where it's going to be a low seed bank. Of course, any site that gets disturbed in any way from construction is susceptible to invasives, but the fact that they weren't high density out there in the first place is a positive along those lines.
I agree.
Great.
Yeah.
My only other question is, is there any work actually happening over here? Why does this oak need to come out? if the spillway is over here. It doesn't look like,
Let me see about that. That might have just been for clearing for the riprap spillway.
to install the spillway.
Yeah. Yeah, I can check with our team on that. We modified it a little bit because of discussions with the town in terms of maintenance needs. So it used to extend a little bit more into that 35-foot buffer, so we might have pulled back, and that's the reason why you don't see any more riprap down there. So there may be a possibility to save that tree.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't need to get rid of it for installation anymore, it should be, we like our black oaks. Pitch pines are great too, but there's way more of them.
Right.
Yeah, just one other thing I'd like. Just sort of an overview of climate change and how this project fits in with its ability to withstand over the years as the waters get more storms and so forth and so on. What's your feeling about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, green stormwater infrastructure, so that's anything that's not pipes, manholes, catch basins, typically adapt very well over time to changing conditions, which is why we're a big fan of them, especially on Cape Cod. One of the good things about this constructed wetland is it relies on water being in the wetland. It's designed with a permanent pool, and that pool can fluctuate over time to be able to manage stormwater. So I don't have any concerns with the changing climate of this site. I think it's going to adapt very well with what we can expect to come.
What about just size of storms, and what size of storm would it take for this type of project to be wiped out?
Yeah, so we design our systems now for the data that we have. And so we actually did design this one. It treats the full 1 inch or the water quality volume, but it can hold back the 100-year storm. So if you see, we do show the 100-year elevation, which is just below our berm of 9.5 feet. So it's the design that we have for this is able to at least hold back a little bit of the 100-year storm and allow it to dissipate out more slowly, retain it.
I get concerned about the characterization of 100, 500-year storms, knowing how many years it takes to recalibrate and get remeasured. So we're already dealing you're probably dealing with the 100-year storm is probably our character, probably 120, 150. So I'm just bringing it up because of that kind of issue.
Sure.
No questions?
Yeah, I just have one or two. So after this is built, it sounds like a great project, just like the other one. Is it working optimally right away, or does it have to, do the plants and everything, well, anything else have to come together for it to be effective, 100% effective, as you'd like it to be?
Yeah, so with any healthy wetland, the plants are pretty critical. So as Brittany alluded to, the period of time where they, we want to make sure that they get established permanently. And so it will be critical for the first few years to make sure that those plants that are planted do establish themselves for all the same processes that you see in a natural wetland that take place. So it's working in terms of it's able to detain and store temporarily stormwater runoff, and you have the settling treatment that's happening. So that all is going to work, and it's really going to be the plants establishing themselves that make it a long-term, the long-term functionality happen.
Okay. And there was some questions about maintenance, and so I would imagine if it isn't maintained, does it get overgrown? You know, where it's not working as well as if it was properly maintained? Just to kind of comment on the importance of maintenance. You know?
Yeah, I think what will be helpful in terms of the plant vegetation is making sure that they are weeding out anything that we don't want in there, like invasives. You know, our planting plan has a diversity of plants that we've suggested be put in, depending again on the marsh areas, the low marsh, the high marsh. So there's a large diversity of vegetation that we're proposing. So I don't know if it would be so much of an issue of like limiting those plants, because I think the more the better.
Yeah, okay.
It's more just the weeding and making sure there's no invasives taking over.
Okay. It just comes to mind that sometimes, I mean, I've been doing some things with the town for a little while, but sometimes things get lost, you know. For example, I guess, a pipe might, you don't know where it is anymore. It was put in, it was supposed to be maintained, it wasn't. So what I would hope is somehow there's something that can be done to make sure that the town remembers what it's supposed to be doing all the time. Because I think things get busy, things get complicated, things change. So this is an excellent program, sounds very worthwhile. And I would hope that in many, many, many years to come, it's maintained properly and attended to properly by the people who are supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So,
It's in the town's best interest to continue
Yeah.
to do the maintenance, and we've now worked with them on a lot of different projects to promote GSI, and I think to what Nate said, they're going to be hiring, or they're going to continue a relationship with one of their contractors to maintain it. The biggest thing here for maintenance is really making sure that water quality unit's cleaned out regularly from sediment, because you want to make sure that's clean, and then checking to make sure the overflow spillway is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
and how often should that take place?
So we recommend at least twice a year, but the first year, just given how large this drainage area is, it would be good to go out there, after a big storm, just to see what's happened and how much sediment's accumulated in the water quality unit.
Will they pump it out and then bring it someplace? Okay.
Yep, just vacuum it right out,
Okay.
pump it out.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Can you remind me, what was the timeline for this one, for this part?
So we are hoping to go out to bid later this year with a completion date of like May, June 2025.
Anybody else on the board?
I just want to agree with Paul that, not that something you've done, but, I walk up Seagull Beach Road, and I notice sometimes, I think that area needs to be looked at and maintained more. So I think, to go along with what Paul said, something the town needs to continue to do.
Which reminds me,
And Ed,
we'll have to ask about,
Siegel,
yes,
the pre-construction meeting is in 2 weeks,
2 weeks, okay, all right,
or next week. I can't remember. It's soon.
okay.
just one more aside, continuing on and expanding on this idea of maintenance, that as we get more of these in the town, and I'm talking 10, 20, 30 years, that I know they have a very good facilities kind of budget, and I think that there needs to be more of a conservation area type of budget that we build on, and maybe come back to us even to help put pressure on folks to be able to come up with this kind of good, solid approach towards coming back continually, annually, be sure we have enough funds for these kind of things. I don't know if you have an idea of how many of these kind of things are already in Yarmouth, or?
Nate, do you know that?
I know there's at least one other constructed wetland sort of bioretention thing, but
Yeah, right now it's a handful.
yeah, not that many.
And when
There's
that
few.
handful grows,
That's right. When the handful grows, we've got to make sure that we've got our eyes on all of them.
so I don't know if we could, but I'd maybe still be here a few more years to help. But
Just one more question, if I may. So this isn't considered to be a conservation area, right? It's town-owned land, but it's not conservation area. Should it be designated as such?
No.
No.
Conservation area would not be allowed to be turned into something
like-
like
you don't-
this.
you won't be
It would
allowed to
not,
do
it's
this.
not zoned for that.
I'm sorry, what?
So the way, like, if the Conservation Commission owns a parcel of land, it's part of,
Can't do this to it.
you can't, yeah.
What
It
about
would-
after the fact, though? Just, is there any protection that conservation could give it? Where people start
So
throwing
this is
in-
not, it will not become jurisdictional wetland, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, all right.
Because of the stormwater components, and it wouldn't qualify as a jurisdictional wetland under our bylaw, and definitely not under the Wetlands
state,
Protection Act. Yeah,
So again, it's the town's responsibility to make sure people don't start dumping stuff in there.
it is. Do we know what it's zoned as? Is it just municipal land, or what department owns the land, do you know?
I don't know the answer to that. We can find out.
Yeah, it's very easy to find out who owns it, but
Yeah.
it's not.
And, I'm sorry, so will signage be put up about what this is and what it's doing and that type of thing, so people going back and forth, looking for a place to dump a couch or something, know that they shouldn't do it there, you know? Is that in the plan?
Leaves. You know, we saw a lot of leaves being dumped there.
Yeah.
Sorry, are you asking if there's signage for like no
Is there
dumping?
gonna be signage about what the project is all about and what the
Oh,
area?
so this site does not have educational signage proposed for it, just because it's not as visible, like people don't walk by it as much, but if that's something that is of interest, we can consider it.
Oh, okay.
I would change that around to say it's not educational, it's somebody, a warning sign, just like, and that's what people that dump, that's the kind of places they want. It's out of the way, down there, and they could sneak in and out of.
We noticed a lot of obvious leaves and grass clippings.
So that should actually be part of the monitoring, that would be something to know as part of the monitoring report.
Yeah,
Whether
for
or not they're
dumping.
running across more or less from year to year.
We have Amanda online.
Yeah, Amanda?
Hello, good evening. I just wanted to add a few extra points. It is a municipal lot that was obtained in 1970.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Do you have anything else, or?
Yeah, just to add on, CEI does do inspections of all of our BMPs once a year. We do not have any other constructed wetlands at this time. We are interested based on the reporting that we have done in ones in the future. And we understand that there is significant maintenance. We've discussed it with Highway. And if there's something that goes beyond the capabilities of Highway, then we would also utilize, we have an on-call contract with the landscaper. And so we really want to explore this option and be serious in regards to keeping it maintained.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. All right, anybody else? I didn't throw it out to the audience, but I don't think there's anybody in the audience who wanted to say anything about this at this point. Unless there's further discussion among the board, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, next order of business is another notice of intent for SE 83-2448, Jody and Paul Steele, 66 Grandview Drive, proposed dredging, removal of boat lift, and installation of floats with stops within land under the ocean and land containing shellfish. I have a note, it's on behalf of our client Paul and Jody Steele, requesting a continuance due to overlapping meetings in different towns. Please schedule us for the next available meeting, which would be October 17th, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to continue this to October 17th without the testimony?
So moved.
Or a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. We have a continued request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-210414 and 20 Kingsbury Way. Apparently, we have some issues with this one, right, Brittany?
Yes, there are. The photos are in here. Are you Nancy? If you can come up. But so Nancy was sent a couple of COC reminder letters as part of our program to try and reach out to old orders of conditions. And so then she requested a partial COC due and saying that the plantings she was unable to establish. The program was in, sorry, let's start over. The order of conditions was in response to a violation. So it included invasive species management, installation of a fence to mark the conservation property, because it was on conservation property and within conservation jurisdiction, and replanting. So monitoring reports had been completed partially, and she requested a partial COC, indicating that the invasive species management was mildly successful, and some of the invasives were removed but not eradicated, and claiming that some plants were planted, but they did not survive. So unfortunately, upon my site visit, my pictures didn't load up, but it appeared that no plantings had ever been completed, and we never received a restoration planting plan. There is still evidence of dumping of lawn clippings on both conservation property and with conservation jurisdiction, including the recent tree removal within the 100-foot buffer without prior authorization, and continuous mowing on conservation property, including failure to install a fence marking the property boundary at the end of year 3. I think it's been... Sorry, I gotta find the order of conditions.
It's filed in 2017.
Thank you, 2017. So it's been 7 years. So at this time, I would recommend the denial of the partial COC request and issuance of an enforcement order requiring the completion of plantings, installation of the fence immediately, removal of landscape debris, and a restoration planting plan prepared by a professional with planting due at the end of May. Thank you.
Okay, so there was a violation. They asked we asked a notice of intent be prepared. We issued an order of conditions. Is that right? The order of conditions said, mark the property line, do the invasives, and
Do restoration planting.
restoration planting.
Yeah.
The invasives were partially accomplished. The planting was not.
And the fence was not.
The fence was not. And there was an issue of continued, right, did I read that right? There was continued mowing on conservation property as well then.
That's correct.
Okay, so I don't think they meet the criteria for the issuance of the certificate of compliance either way, because the work hasn't been done yet.
I would agree.
So unless there's any further discussion on that, could I get a motion?
Can I say anything during this?
Sure.
Only because I don't know if any of you were part of this when we started, because I know Kelly Grant we had many meetings out there. So I did bring a kind of a storyboard of what took place, so you can kind of see, what it looked like originally. It's a very dense, there's two areas. So 20 had mostly bamboo and other invasives, and 14 had mostly Phragmites and invasives. So the one that was, so we were hand cutting it, and we've owned this property 20 for, November will be 20 years. 14 we bought in 2013. After me and my husband both have tendonitis of the elbow, the Phragmite came all the way up to the foundation of the house. So we had tree people there at the time, and we were explaining how we have to keep this cut, and it's it's coming up to where septic, it could, that's what bamboo does. I mean, it's just, if you had the time and you could stand there and watch it grow, you would see it grow. I mean, it literally, I have, one of my monitoring reports in 2018 shows I would go back there every 3 days, and it looks like, I have a picture here, it looks like asparagus, but it literally, at the end of a week, 7 days, is this tall. So, the violation happened because the tree guy said, you don't have to cut this by hand, I have a machine that cuts it and mulches it at the same time, so we didn't have to haul it all away. That's when the violation came. They didn't want any wheels down there. So Kelly suggested that we apply for this Mass DEP permit and just do hand cutting, which we've been doing for the last 7 years. So basically, she also approved, because the Witten Landscaping had recommended, the only way to even a tiny bit successful at eradicating bamboo is you have to get the roots. He says, you're just going to keep cutting like you have been for the last 20 years. So she approved getting a mini excavator in there on the slope, and that was where supposedly the developer planted this bamboo back in the 60s. And so you could see on the slopes was where it was planted originally, because it was the strongest. The stalks were 26 feet tall. Some of them were 4 inches in diameter. And he said, you're going to waste all your money if you just continue to hand cut it, and you'll be doing it forever. You have to get to the roots. So that was approved, and we got, I think it's Heritage Seed, Cape Cod seed mix, and that was approved to put on the slope so that continued mowing could happen. Without mowing of it on the slope, it shoots up. And I have pictures of it so you can see what it looks like. It's a grass. Bamboo is a grass, so you have to keep cutting it in order to keep it back. So the plan was to continue cutting. We used to cut it 6 times a year. Now we're down to twice a year. So it's definitely better than it was. And when I say 6 times a year, we probably could have done it every month. That was just what we were capable of doing, and we were doing a lot of this ourselves and not hiring people. Now, every time we hire for someone to hand cut it, it's $1,200. One other thing that got approved from Kelly was Phragmites is a little bit different breed. If it doesn't get sunlight, it can't grow, but the grove is so extensive. So we got approved to put this black polyethylene fabric down. It was, I don't know, it was like 120 feet by 40 feet. It worked where it was placed, but as soon as you lifted it up, the Phragmites would come back. So that grove is so big, it goes all the way back to the boardwalk that enters to go to Grays Beach. You would have to try to kill all of it, or else it's, all the root system is underneath. So that was not successful, but we've kept it from coming up to the grass line and up into our yard by mowing. So we just kind of left that alone, and we actually haven't cut that in 2 years. And we're just continuing to cut in the back where the bamboo grove is. But the good news is where we've pretty much 90%, I would say, have eradicated the bamboo. You can still see it in the very back perimeter. There's new species that grow. We've got wildlife, turkeys come in there now. Before, if you look at the original picture, and you may have to see these closer, there was no daylight in there. You could barely even walk because the bamboo was so dense. And now it's, we've got milkweed coming in and other plants that are not invasive that are native. I bought 700 plugs of native species along the Phragmites border. And unfortunately, since I don't live there, I couldn't monitor it. And the deer and the rabbits pretty much feasted on it and ate all of it. So that was very expensive. So that was over $1,000 for that project. And I planted them all myself. So as you can imagine, I cried when I came back and saw that they were all eaten. The problem with, not only with the wildlife coming, I mean, I'm sure we could put some sort of mesh or something to keep them back, but there's so much root system from the bamboo and the invasive wild grapevine that for anything to grow, you would literally have to rake up probably more than a foot of debris that's just kind of taken over and built up over the years. The other thing was, people use the back of this, you know, that previous conversation that you had about people dumping mattresses. They would dump construction materials back there. We hauled away 4 dump trucks full of cinder blocks and bricks and all kinds of debris. And you didn't see it initially because the bamboo was so thick, but not until we started clearing it out, it showed that it was a dumping site. And we've pretty much got all of that. I walked back there the other day, and there's a little remnant of some bricks that, not a lot, that need to be picked up. But again, all this was done with us paying for all of it. None of this was assisted by the town. This doesn't help my view at all. It's all because I didn't want it to come up to our yard. And, you know, we would come down here. This is a second home. We would come down after 2 weeks, and you would see the asparagus in the middle of the lawn, thousands of them. So we've definitely got it. This was the way to go. The tearing up the roots on the slope was very successful. And there's very minimal bamboo now, and it's manageable for us to cut that. As far as a fence, I spoke with Kelly about that. We're not willing to pay for a fence. I don't know what the need of a fence would be.
So the major problem with this is severe encroachment on the conservation property. You're about the town of Yarmouth-owned conservation land, which you're currently mowing and doing this management.
But we have to mow because it's the only way to keep the bamboo from growing.
But you're doing it on property that's not your property. So that's why the initial violation notice went out. And the fence needs to be put in so that you don't continue to encroach on the town of.
We have to mow that, so if there's a fence.
But it's not your property.
You're not allowed to mow on somebody else's property.
Well, it's not even mowing. We're not mowing.
You're not allowed to
We're-
come onto
we're
somebody
hand-
else's property and do anything without their permission. And you weren't granted permission. That's why they asked for the fence in the first place.
No,
So
but
they
that
would-
was.
so you
when-
would keep
well,
off of that.
Again, this was with Kelly. She said you can't have machinery going down there. It has to be all by hand. And that's what we approved for, we hand
But
cut
it
it.
doesn't give you the right to,
Well, there's no other way to keep it back. How do you?
So
if
you
you're
should
not
have filed
cutting?
for an extension because your permit expired in 2021. And since then, you've been continuing to encroach on property that's not yours and doing these activities without a permit. So there's still a problem. And I understand you're still fighting these invasive species, but you need to have an active permit or permission in order to complete work on the town of Yarmouth
So,
conservation
again,
property.
And I don't know if we could get, if Kelly is still local, what she told me was.
All of Kelly's documentation is amazing. We
when
have
first
everything on
applied
record.
for this, and I said, you know, I don't mind spending the money to do this, but this is an ongoing thing. This is gonna need cutting ongoing. And she said, when your permit's up, you will have permission for ongoing trimming.
So after year 3, which would have been 2020, you're supposed to submit a restoration planting plan, including a 20-foot vegetated buffer, including large and small shrubs, not just perennials. And that was never completed. So at that time, that would have been the time to ask for permission for ongoing maintenance. But that was never completed. So we can't go backward and make that happen, but we could start trying to do something now.
Well, the replanting, it did happen, it just wasn't successful. And at the time, she said we couldn't, because of what I said of that buildup of root systems and in dead stalks. Nothing, you can't plant in that. It's like planting in a pile of, you know, decayed leaves. You need dirt to plant in it. So at that time, she said we didn't have permission to bring in any type of soil or anything to plant in. So we had to kind of make do with what was there. And again, if you wanted to scrape all that to get to the natural layer, you would need equipment to do that. It's just too extensive, it's too big. And, you know, we could do maybe a, you know, I don't know, maybe a 2-foot border along the whole edge and see if that establishes to keep it from going, encroaching up the slope. I don't know if that's something that you would be willing to do, but.
I think the root of the problem here is that the methods that have been employed are not the best management practices for managing Phragmites, at least. I'm not actually familiar with managing bamboo, but for Phragmites, mowing it is not known to be effective. It's known to be ineffective at managing Phragmites, and if you were to work with a professional who does that for a living and is, you know, well versed in application and herbicide, you'd be able to get much better control on your property.
I didn't want to go with herbicides. I mean, there's water there, especially with the Phragmites. The bamboo is dry, but the Phragmites is underwater.
Yeah.
So I can't see, like in my mind, it doesn't make sense to put herbicides there that could, you know, to go into the waterways as opposed to.
And that's fine.
wheels from a
That's your
lawnmower. What are
opinion.
wheels
But
gonna do?
in concerning the order of conditions, it still has not been completed. So going back to the COC request, the certificate of compliance would not, it hasn't been, the terms of the order of condition have not been met. So I don't think the board can issue the certificate of compliance.
So what, I guess I'm not following what you need done at this point. I mean, the Phragmites, we stopped cutting, like I said, we stopped over a year ago. And just hand weed whacking that slope where that harvest seed has been planted is working. It's not coming up into the grass anymore, into our yard. It is, however, creeping over to where the bamboo was.
But can I interrupt? We're dealing two things, your actions and a permit. We can only really deal with this from a permit viewpoint.
Yep,
So until you have a plan submitted to us,
yep.
we can't give you permit to do anything.
Mhm.
And you're asking us questions of how to do it is not going to do any good because you need somebody to help to design what Brittany's suggestions, some things, but really, it's a private matter with a design team that you pick and pay for. But you need to come to us with that.
So I need
we
to
would
apply
give you
for another
permit.
Mass DEP permit? No?
No.
Okay,
It's to us.
okay. So that, I don't
I'm
have
sorry to
pay for
interrupt.
that
Can you
yet.
sit and speak into the microphone so that our
sorry.
online
Yes.
viewers can hear you? Thank you.
So I don't have to pay the $500 for each property like I did in the past for the Mass DEP?
What I would be recommending is issuance of an enforcement order to carry out work with permission through the enforcement order.
I think that would be the fastest, easiest way to do it. I think you definitely need to have help from a land management specialist to design the restoration and finish the work that needs to be done. Yeah, I think you certainly need to, in terms of the certificate of compliance at this point, you do need to do several things that, in order for you to achieve, at least get the minimum for the certificate of compliance. And the chief amongst them is the mowing has to stop because you don't have a permit to mow or cut at all at this point. Then where is it here?
The 20-foot buffer.
I can't, yeah, so there's a 20-foot buffer strip, is that there? Is that?
No.
That's not there. Okay, so the 20-foot buffer strip, that would be covered under the enforcement order, the restoration order.
And what does that buffer consist of? Is that replanting?
20-foot buffer strip of native vegetation shall be planted adjacent to the delineated wetland resource area as per the approved planting plan. So you'd go back to the approved planting plan that was part of this original SE 83-2104.
It was to be submitted, so we
It
never
was
got
never
one.
submitted.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would need to get a landscape or a land management professional to help design that plan, that restoration plan. Then you would also need to put the fence, and it's very specific in the order of conditions as to what you're supposed to do. I don't know why I can't find it all of a sudden, but.
By end of year 3, the project, a single rail fence shall be erected to delineate and demarcate the conservation property with a sign indicating that it's conservation land beyond that point, which is special condition number 18.
So we're really down to special condition 11 and 18 are the two main hurdles for you to, in order for you to get the certificate of compliance.
Yeah, and 12, which is no lawn beyond noted, but yeah,
So is there any discussion on that fence?
no.
There isn't, so that has
No.
to be put up, or this will never be closed.
And
mean,
you'll
that's
be
a-
in violation.
That's a really long fence.
Well, you agreed to it at the time when you did the
27.
DEP filing. You agreed to that as part of the,
Unfortunately, me and Kelly had a lot of conversation while we were there. And all that was brought up, and I would not have agreed to that, the fencing part. Because we were kind of looking at, let's see how far this goes, how successful it is.
but again, you applied for a permit.
I
A
understand
DEP
that.
permit, SC 83-2104. You were given a permit to do certain work. The order of conditions was listed there in order for you to do that work. Well, part of the order of conditions said, put the fence up at the designated spot, do the 20-foot restoration, or buffer strip. What else?
Yeah,
12.
And no lawn shall exist.
And no lawn shall exist in the native vegetative buffer. So you agreed to that when you made application and accepted the permit. And then you started doing work that you had proposed to do, and you haven't completed that. And if you haven't completed it, I mean, those are significant things that are variations from the order of conditions. And until you get those things accomplished, I would not feel comfortable asking or issuing a certificate of compliance for this project. And I think that there are enough things that have been done here that need to be corrected. And that's what the enforcement order will allow you to do. The permit is no longer valid. It expired 3 years ago.
So that'll be a separate part also, invalid.
So the enforcement order is really the only means for you, or that's the easiest means for you to accomplish what you need to accomplish by issuing the enforcement order.
So as far as I guess, again, it was a misunderstanding. When me and Kelly met there and we talked about digging up the slope where the concentration of the root systems were and planting the heritage seed. That, in my mind, was the buffer. Because, and you can't put a fence at the top, it just makes it that much harder to be able to keep that from coming back. If we stop hand cutting, we're back where we were 7 years ago.
Again, there was nothing
everything
saying
that's
you had,
done-
We're going in circles.
you couldn't hand cut. It said you couldn't use
Couldn't use.
equipment.
Right, we
But
couldn't use
again,
equipment with wheels.
Under no circumstance, and any part of this permit that you had allowed you to cut or control invasives on conservation property.
See,
And you
that,
have done
again,
that.
Kelly said we would have ongoing.
For your project, for
select.
14 and 20 Kingsbury, but not going on, she did not tell you to go and trespass onto another person's property, another property.
She said as long as we were hand cutting, that would be an ongoing.
On your property,
Yeah, but
on your
we
property,
don't have
that's
to
the
hand
thing.
cut on our property. We can mow on our property. It's the hand cutting was decided because she didn't want wheels or any equipment tracks.
But at no time were you given authorization to cut on the conservation property.
That
This
was,
does not cover the conservation property. You trespassed.
no,
is
that
what
was
happened.
part of it, though. That was what
No,
the permit was.
it was not.
May I assume that you came to a meeting to get a vote? So when you came to that meeting, and I don't think I was on the Conservation
Nope.
Commission.
I know, was anyone here on the conservation?
Hmm?
You were here?
No.
Nobody was.
When was it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
2017?
Yeah, we have the signature sheet.
No, that's 2024.
That's not it.
17.
2017, I think.
You were.
Rick, Phil, Latazzi, and
So, my point-
Durkin.
My point is, you were here at a meeting.
Yep.
You heard what was discussed. You heard what I assume they said, here are your conditions, including the fence and whatever else is listed. And and they voted yes, and that's what you have to do. You can say what you did with Kelly all you want, but the fact is, in writing, you have to do what's in that form, and you have to get that done. And you're not gonna get a certificate of compliance until that's done.
So is there any way to approach this from the standpoint where we're not throwing away 7 years of what we've done and what we've accomplished, and reviewing it as a new concept now?
So including in the restoration plan that will be prepared by a professional, you can continue to manage anything that comes onto your property beyond the restoration buffer plantings that will go in. But beyond that, it doesn't seem like the commission would be willing to grant you permission to continue managing anything off of your property.
Well, and I don't need to manage down there. I don't want to manage down there once those invasives are gone. I mean, specifically the bamboo. I mean, that's what my point is, and that's what Kelly understood was you would probably need ongoing cutting, not knowing how successful it was going to be. It's actually.
You are able to manage these invasive species from coming onto your property
Yep.
without trespassing. And we would be happy to give you, included in the enforcement ability to manage these invasive species once they cross the boundary onto your property. The board does not want you to continue managing them, not on your property.
See, that's where, and you even said yourself that you're not familiar with bamboo. Bamboo is,
Look, it doesn't matter.
In the terms of your,
if you don't keep cutting it,
Doesn't
it's
matter
gonna come
what the
back.
species is, okay? You had a permit to do work. You did the work, or at least partially did the work, but you didn't follow the conditions of the order that allowed you to do the work. And you trespassed on another's land to do the work, okay? You are not allowed to trespass on other property, okay? This was, the conservation property that you trespassed on was not part of this permit. It clearly tells you exactly which, so it was
Well, it's
for,
all conservation. I mean,
No,
the
no.
permit wouldn't have been applied for if it wasn't
it's
conservation.
the property of the town of Yarmouth,
Right, but
okay?
it originated in conservation. I wouldn't have
there's a
bamboo in
difference
my yard.
between conservation jurisdiction and conservation ownership. So it is both.
Right, but my point is if it wasn't in conservation, we wouldn't have had this issue because we would have taken care of it.
You would have still been in the buffer zone, and so you would have had to apply for a permit anyway.
But, okay, so back to the buffer zone. Is that seed that
If it didn't
Kelly
grow, it
approved,
doesn't.
is that considered a buffer zone? Because,
There's 100 feet from the edge of the wetland is a jurisdictional buffer zone under the Wetlands Protection Act.
okay, so
And you are intended on revegetating 20 feet of that buffer zone, which was never revegetated, even if you tried. It didn't establish. So
the
we,
grass did though, that seed, that heritage seed that got approved by the board.
Kelly, I mean, the board required large shrubs to be planted, which
So
were never
that's
planted.
beyond that's beyond the slope then, so.
And it was
20-foot
supposed to be
vegetated
a
buffer
plan.
shall include large and small shrubs. So no, it doesn't count if you just did seeds, because you didn't follow the
So it's
conditions.
beyond that, it has to be shrubs, okay.
And that's why they asked for a plan to be submitted, which was never submitted.
No, I did submit a plan with.
This
I
is
don't-
the plan.
Do you have, it has all the different wildflowers and everything?
Yes, but she specified that you needed a different plan.
Oh, so we didn't have that conversation because,
The plan shall include large and small shrubs.
okay, all right,
This was her conditions.
all right. When we spoke, we didn't get that far. We were still trying to get rid of these invasive species to allow for planting. So,
Do we need a vote on the COC and the
So,
EO?
yeah, so the first thing we need to do is deal with the certificate of compliance. I would recommend that a motion be made. I don't think we should be issuing a COC, okay? So,
Motion should be made to issue one and then.
Yes.
correct. So,
I sit next to you.
that's right. You see, you learned something, that's good. So would somebody like to make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for SE 83-2104?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
So, okay, so the COC does not pass, okay? We have also asked that Brittany file an enforcement order, which we have here, and that will cover that will direct you to specifically or do certain things, and that will be in order for you to get yourself back into compliance and achieve the work that has to be done in order to get the certificate of compliance as well, okay? And
so
so
am I
that,
applying for a new certificate?
You don't have
or
to
no?
apply for
No.
anything.
for anything,
Okay,
okay?
so I just need
we
to
are
come
going
up
to
with
issue
the-
an order.
The planting,
The order will tell you that you need to install the fence, you need to come up with a landscape, a land management specialist should provide a restoration plan that addresses the 20-foot buffer. And what else am I missing?
Removal of landscape debris, and additional trees must be planted in order to account for the large cedar that was recently removed from the buffer zone without approval.
Okay, so there was another
I'm not
tree that was
familiar.
cut down.
There was a large, the cedar, a cedar died over the winter and a black pine that were both in our yard, way up.
They're still in the buffer zone. It's 100 feet.
Oh, well, they were both dead. I have pictures of them.
You still need to request permission to remove them since they provide valuable wildlife habitat.
I wasn't aware of that. I thought if they were down there, but what does it have to be within 100 feet? You need to get permission?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have pictures of them as dead can be.
They would still need to be requested permission to remove and be replaced.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
You have to vote on an enforcement order.
Yeah, that's the enforcement order conditions.
All right, so now we need an a motion to issue the enforcement order with the special conditions of the enforcement order conditions list that we just discussed.
What's that time frame for that?
The restoration
Plan.
planting plan,
Yeah.
what do you think?
In 2 months, I would say.
2 months, that's what I had, yeah. In 2 months and planting completed by the end of May.
Oh, and so the landscape debris, I think you can remove that within
Yeah.
7 days.
And the fence.
The fence and the sign, I think, well, I'd go 30 days on that.
Okay.
The fencing needs to go the whole width of both properties
Yes.
at the
At the boundary,
At the boundary. So that would have to be surveyed.
it would.
Well, wasn't it, it should have been surveyed as part of the
Well,
original.
it was surveyed,
They didn't provide a,
it was surveyed back when we had, not 14, but 20 was surveyed, because we had done construction back in 2007. So Kelly had looked at those surveys.
But that wasn't,
it wasn't surveyed. They didn't have a plan ever submitted. There was no plan associated with the project.
no.
Yeah, there wasn't a
Okay,
survey
well,
of
I mean,
just the land.
so that's gonna throw everything off. That's, I mean, you're never gonna get a surveyor out there in 30 days, so. We'll switch it to 60 days, and if there's any issues that you can't, that you need to contact Brittany and let her know in advance that you're not gonna be able to find the surveyor in time to do that work.
Okay.
Okay? Do not, and I am very serious about this, do not call her up the day before and say, I can't find a surveyor.
Right.
Because I ain't gonna buy it, and I'm gonna ask her that she issues a $300 fine for not complying with the enforcement order then. So so start looking for your surveyor right now, and if you can't, then give her fair notice that you're having issues,
Okay.
okay?
We still need the motion.
So I have a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Only sign the top form, do not sign the bottom. All right, and so Brittany will send you, once she writes the enforcement order, she will send you a copy of that. You'll get a copy of that.
In the mail or by email?
I'll do both.
Okay.
Okay, and then, like I said, make sure you start looking for I would start looking for a land management specialist and a surveyor immediately. And you might actually, I mean, if you get the right land management specialist, they might have some sort of a tie-in with the surveyor that they use all the time. Might make
Do
it
you have
make it
any
easier.
suggestions for anyone, or?
We can't recommend anyone, but I can send you a list of people who have submitted things like that with us in the past.
Okay.
Is this still your mailing address? It's 6 Adrian?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, next order of business is a request for a certificate of compliance for SE 83-2263, Jody and Paul Steele, 66 Grandview Drive, and I understand we have an issue in that there was a plan that was submitted, but it does not reflect the current conditions on site. And so I would assume that we need a new as-built plan before we can do anything. So I would recommend continuing this until we receive the as-built, a stamped as-built.
It was stamped.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Is that Jack?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Says yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bradford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Other business, do we have the approval for meeting minutes for September 19th, 2024?
I actually didn't look at those.
I don't think I got one.
So-
I mean, if I did, I didn't look at it.
All right, so I will table the minutes for,
I can do it if I read them.
But if you're the only one.
And what?
all right, so I'm actually going to table this until everybody gets a chance to read them. So I'll table this to October 17th.
A couple days ago.
Yeah. There must have been with the,
Yeah, it was
with the agenda.
Finn's.
Finn's agenda, okay. I
All
missed
right.
it, my fault.
So we'll table it until the next time around.
Okay.
Regulation updates will be reviewed at the meeting on October 17th. So everybody has had a chance to see I know we've all received the updates or the proposed changes.
Are there anything additional to that? Brittany?
Not since I sent it to you.
What?
Not since I sent it to you.
Okay.
Got
That's
some
all I'm
comments
asking.
that I'll pass on this.
You were supposed to send them before, Jack.
What?
You were supposed to send them in round 1 of review.
I know.
Send them soon.
Well, that's what I said.
Wait, have they
maybe you
already been
can't do anything
posted?
with it.
They have been posted.
Well, then we can't accept anything. I mean, we could, well, no.
Then we'll need to talk about what,
But that was why I sent them out all like 2 months ago for review, for comments. I got comments from everyone else.
well,
We can accept your comments and revise if needed, but I'd rather revise and then repost. I'd rather have them posted so everyone can see what we're actually voting on,
yeah, but it's a matter of
if they're minor.
time around, second time.
Are they minor?
One is yes, there's a spelling, that's no big deal.
Okay, that's super minor.
Second, the first one is the definition of 100-foot.
We can't change that because that was as we wrote it in the bylaw.
And that's my point, is that, in fact, if you look back at the state's
Ours is different.
definition, they don't do it with mean annual high water line. They do it with mean annual high water line period, meaning some March through early April in most cases. So,
Yes, when it contains water.
and that's not in here. So, actually, your buffer zone could be awfully impacted by that.
Okay, we can consider looking at
That's
that.
a future thing if you don't want to deal with it.
It's already in the bylaw, but we can look. But yeah, those have been posted. We'll review them October 17th. I got 1 application today, so it should be just continuances and 1 new thing next time, in addition to our regulations update. So that's always good.
Got 1 application?
Yeah, so it's going to be a light meeting for us to review the
One
regulations.
continuance, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about an application for a new.
Oh, also, Finn has announced that he is leaving, so we are on the hunt. It has been posted today, the conservation agent assistant job. If you have anyone who you think might be interested, please let them know to apply, as I need help.
Can I ask you a question about that? When that kind of thing occurs, and it's happened a couple of times for somebody to leave, I'm hoping that somebody in the town government comes to your assistance with somebody on a part-time basis or something like that? Is it,
They have not in the past.
have you asked them?
I have not. I will.
I would ask them, and then they say no. I tell the commission that they said no. So, then maybe we could help you with that.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue with that is that, I mean, it's, there is some skill that's necessary to help out, so it's not the easiest thing. It's not like you can go to a tent pole and say, oh, here, send somebody over.
I think I understand that, but I think, is there anybody? And maybe the answer is no, we don't have anybody. But I think just almost like common courtesy, you should say to somebody in a department when they're down a person and looking for somebody, hey, listen, we could send so-and-so over to help you with something. I mean, that's what I'm, and you're not looking for somebody who has all the expertise. That's all.
Yeah, spread the word. Any other updates?
Anything else?
No, we just continued our guided walk series today. Pat and David were there, hoping to. Oh, thanks. I think it went well. We had 15 attendees. I'm hoping to do our next one at Calorie Darling, maybe with the help of Ed with some bird stuff. To Ed.
Are we doing Calorie Darling, or are we moving it to Seagull Beach?
Okay, it's up to you. You're the bird expert.
Yeah,
But those have been going well.
Okay.
And that's all.
I was just going to commend you, I'm sure Pat agrees, on your
Thanks.
on your ability to educate us and find good places to go, and it was
Thanks.
excellent, as usual. I
Hope you
people out
enjoyed
there
it.
hear that, because you should come to the next one, and I hope other people in the town offices hear what a great job you're doing.
Thank you. You get to learn lots of fun facts about plants. Woo.
And where is the next one?
Hoping to do either Calorie Darling, and then the last one I want to do the Historical Society trails behind Yarmouth Port Post Office.
Okay. The recently damaged post office.
Oh, was it?
Oh, God.
Somebody ran into it.
Luckily,
Oh.
nobody was killed.
For which
When was that?
The Yarmouth Park Post Office, a Cadillac went through the front door.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right into the lobby.
Wow.
But nobody was hurt. Nobody was there, thank God. you
That's
know.
good.
That's amazing because there's not a lot of room in there.
No, there isn't.
No,
Talk about lucky picture.
must have been moving.
Pigtail.
Oh,
That was a
did you
curve.
see it?
Total
No,
luck.
I haven't been up.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
there this
yeah.
In
weekend.
the neighborhood?
Yeah, it was
Must
on
have
the
just
roof
happened.
next to my
Somebody-
house, and I was taking, I
Guess
was
what,
gonna
an
take a
old
regular
person?
picture of it like that. and
Okay, should we adjourn
I missed
as
it.
we chat?
All right, any further, any other business not reasonably anticipated?
Just luck.
If not, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.